I'm actually going to set my BPM to 144. Okay, so the reason why we're dragging over an already pre-made sample is so that way we can follow the structure along with our drum rack. So I'm actually going to color this track so we can see it a little bit clearer. I like cyan, that's my favorite color. We're going to call this model, and we're going to turn it off for now. We're going to click, hold tab, and drag it over and view it down here. And we're going to also create 2 of these so that way we have a longer loop to work with. So for our drum rack, I can actually delete this clip and just click empty space and do now if you're on a Mac you can do Command Shift M, but if you're on a PC you can do Control Shift M once you have the space already selected. So if we have a listen to our model, it's pretty simple. Okay, so with our first drum rack, we're actually going to copy the sample exactly as it lands. So I'm actually going to draw 1. This goes to 8. So 1 here. Then let me zoom in a little bit more. So 1 on 1. Let's see, zoom in more. Let's see, where does this fall under? 1, 2, that's too far. It's right in between 1.3, so I guess it's 1.4. So we're gonna go into 16ths. Yeah, 16ths and follow that. So, and then this one falls on 1, 2, 3, and then we have it goes do 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 ch. So we have a snare on the 1, 3. Let me have another listen. So there's actually a snare and a clap there. So I'm actually gonna do clap 1 and clap 2. Now if we actually, let's see, okay, this stops at 2. So for our hats, I'm actually gonna drop in 16ths and do every other one. So skip a space, do a hat. Actually, let me do this in 32s. Gonna just for every other space drop in a hat. Click and drag, D. There we go. So now let's have a listen to our own loop. It sounds a little bit repetitive. So in order to change this up a bit, for every other 2, I'm gonna change the hat to hat 2. Sounds a little bit rushed, that's okay. We just want to get the overall achieved sound for right now. This is why when it comes to layering drums, it's going to start to make more sense. So on 1/4, there's another hat, but I'm actually going to drop a crash there. And now I'm going to shrink this loop to the second parameter, so that way it loops. Okay. Now let's have a listen with both. It's pretty close. So we're gonna click and drag this down to our second drum rack, and we have already created better sounding dubstep drums. So have a listen. It sounds a little bit muscled, a little bit thin right now. That's because we haven't done anything with the compressor. I'm actually just gonna drop it to -2.2 for the compressor. Just leave everything as is, just dropping down the threshold. For reverb, I'm going to take this about 25%. I'm talking too fast. 25%, the size about, let's go for 50. And the decay time about 778. Now if we have a listen. It's a much tighter reverb. For our saturator, I'm just going to put it on Seinfeld and put on soft clip. It makes it much harder to hit, and I'm actually going to delete all on the second drum rack. Just delete all this and just copy our parameters over by clicking on one device and going to the end while holding shift and clicking on the last one to select all of them. Click, hold alt, and drag over. Now if we have a listen, we should have better dubstep drums. So with this technique, you can get a lot of different sounds coming out of your drums. There's a lot of free dubstep loops out there. If you need me to do some research on finding good or actually great samples to model after, this is actually one of the courses for you. Now, I don't really know too much about dubstep or drumstep or darkstep or hardstep or any of those different genres. I do know they're awesome, and I do know how to make very creative drum racks and things of them. Let me save this as dubstep drums 3 and go over here, save this as dubstep drums 4. So now that we have our drums and everything, if you really want, let me get rid of this model. If you really, I didn't want to freeze that. If you really want to create a big impact, I would suggest using, where is it? Drum tools. There should be like an effects. Yeah, here it is. It's not the effects I'm looking for. It's like a giant crash, or it's usually a SFX. Like the Future Retro is a good example of this. Let me drop it down 10 decibels and put a lot of reverb and echo on this. And what this does, I'm actually going to fade this out a lot. What this does is you hear it in a lot of pop tracks, and it can be crossed over to dubstep. It's actually one of a really great tool to use. If you impact your drums with a white noise or an effects, SFX, you can create you can grab your listener. So instead of just starting out with drums and just letting the drums play over and over and over again, you can actually grab the listener and do a lot of different triplets along with your drums. So let me drop a compressor, and I'm actually going to sidechain this. When you sidechain things, you hear it a lot in, how would I say this? You hear it a lot, I'm gonna do post. You hear a lot of sidechaining in pop tracks, and now if you have listened, you should have an understanding of what sidechaining does. Every time the kick hits, it drops the meter down and creates a little bit of room for the kick drum, creating a sidechain with the sound. So now if we have a listen to our drums, we have successfully created dorky dubstep drums, but if you start to layer them with other sounds, kind of like top loops and things like that, you start to get a unique sound. So, thanks for joining me. If you need me to do any sort of specialized sounds, especially in Ableton, because Ableton is perfect for sound design, and so is Reason. So I can show you how to create certain bass lines and things like that. like have a listen to these actually three different types of basses I've made. Let me set this. So thanks for joining me, guys, and have a good Wednesday. And I will see you guys Friday for a... let's see. Actually, let me know what you want to see for Friday. I can create any sound you guys need me to do, including Reese basses, not particularly just in dubstep, but I'm really good at creating glitch effects. I can basically do any genre you want me to, including metal. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys Friday.